guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be talking about Les Sylphides, the ballet. I decided to film this video at night time because Les Sylphides is very magical and supernatural, so I thought night would be the perfect setting. However, it's not a full moon, but I wish it was. My favourite YouTuber is Laura Jane Altier. I just love her videos, and after watching one of her videos, I was in the mood to film and talk to you guys. I also was watching a new TV series called See the Beginning of Everything, and I love Christina Ricci, and that's super random and has nothing to do with this video, but you know, it's one of those days. I'm having a nice day. I'll probably be going to bed soon, but I guess See the Beginning of Everything is not completely out of context because I love history, and Laura Jane Altier, the YouTuber, she also talks a lot about history, and this ballet is on the same kind of subject. It's really old, but it's very historical. But you know, I wanted to keep you up to date with my ballet. As promised, I will be showing you my lifestyle videos, my diet videos. I can also show you an interview I did with a famous ballerina, and I'll keep it a secret until I reveal the surprise. I am going to be doing a Swan Lake soon. I'm going to be flying home very soon, and I'll be filming that, and that will probably be my next video. So let's get into today's video about Les Sylphides. So right here we have a sylph, which is a beautiful supernatural creature. I don't know if you can see, but they have little wings on their backs, and they are so enchanting and magical. Sylphs are basically spirits of the air that are soulless, and they can also turn invisible, which is very important for later on. So Les Sylphides was choreographed by Mikhail Fouquet, and the music was by Frédéric Chopin and Alexander Glazunov. Interestingly enough, the ballet first premiered as Chopiniana. Don't know if I'm saying that right. Kind of sounds like Tropicana, the orange juice, but the original name, I think, was based after Chopin, but I'm just guessing that. So that first premiered with that name in 1907, which is decades ago, like so old. But then 2 years after 1907, it premiered as Les Sylphides, so which was 1909. And this ballet is very enchanting to watch. This is some rehearsal footage from 2020, which was a very difficult time for dancers. I don't know if you can see, but we're all wearing masks. It was really awful. To think that COVID was actually the last pandemic is strange, because the pandemic before that was the Spanish flu. And I know that because I was watching a movie called Pearl, which is actually a horror film, when the Spanish flu was happening. And this, back on topic, is a stage rehearsal in 2020, and this was also so beautiful. Actually, the setting, a lot of people were behind the sets for this ballet when it first was made, and as you can see, the setting is like trees and leaves, and it's a very magical environment. Sylphs are the only women in the ballet, the supernatural creatures. Here's footage from live performance. And as you can see, I'm behind there. I was playing the young man known as the poet. So the only characters in this ballet are the poet and the sylph. Now this is this year where I got to perform the ballet again. So last time, back in time, I was performing that in 2020, and now I was performing it this year. And this time I performed it on an open air stage, which was outdoors. So as you could see before, the setting was in the theatre and the set was the trees, but this time I really was outside under the magical moon performing it outside. So I didn't have to imagine much. This ballet is a dream to watch. It's surreal, it's very magical, and these long tutus they're wearing are very different to the classical tutus that you all know. That's because in the 19th century, the Romantic era was very popular. The Romantic era of ballet was made at a time to evoke emotions to those who watched it. Also, Romantic ballets always had supernatural creatures in. The women were always supernatural creatures, like Giselle, and there's another ballet called La Sylphide. The difference is the La, where this is La Sylphide. In La Sylphide, there are also supernatural creatures. La Sylphide is completely different. Do not get confused with La Sylphide, because Marie Taglioni, that famous picture of a ballerina, she was performing in La Sylphide, and her dad actually choreographed that. So don't get confused with that. But here I am performing Les Sylphides, and you know, this ballet apparently had no storyline at all. It was just made, this young poet was just dancing with supernatural sylphs, magical creatures. But I was taught this ballet, and I was told there was a bit of a storyline, and I agree, I think there is a bit of a storyline. Because you see, sylphs are supernatural creatures that can turn invisible. And I think this young poet wanders into a forest in the search of inspiration to write his poems, and he sees these sylphs, these supernatural creatures, and there's one in particular, the one who I'm dancing with, that he really loves, and she is his muse, and he begins to write about her. But I think it's a bit sad really, because sylphs are soulless, they don't have souls, so I don't think they really care about him or acknowledge him. They're just kind of there and dancing, and he's just following them. He's following the one on the right, that is Liani, who I was dancing with mainly, and she just keeps turning invisible and he can't see her. That's what I think is happening in this ballet. I think that this crazy poet wandered into a forest and fell in love with a sylph who keeps turning invisible on him. The first ballet company to perform this in the 19th century was actually the Ballet Russe in Russia. And interestingly enough, back in 2020 when I first did this ballet, it was staged by Lynn Wallace. And Lynn Wallace is actually quite notable in the ballet world. She's quite famous. I first met her when I was about 13 years old, when I was filming the Royal Academy of Dance DVD. I was one of the young children to film that, and that's where I first met Lynn Wallace. And years later, actually, she got to see me all grown up as a professional dancer and taught me this ballet for the first time. She actually taught me this in 2020 though, so she taught me over Zoom. So it was a difficult time, but I think she was quite proud of me, so you know. But you know, performing at this theatre was a magical experience. As I said, it was an open air theatre. Open air theatre. But this ballet is very enchanting. The music by Chopin and Glazunov are very famous composers. And that is the ending of the prologue, where he chooses what sylph to follow. As you can see, I go off and I follow the one who I later dance with. And now this section is the beginning of the poet's variation. He does a solo. And you can see I'm literally coming on from backstage, which there wasn't really a backstage. It was just a forest. We were literally performing outside. So backstage there was a lot of mud and trees. And it wasn't easy, but I guess it was part of the magical experience. Now this solo is very classical, uses a lot of bending and fondus, which is really difficult, especially performing this ballet outside. At least I first got to perform it inside a theatre. It was still difficult in the theatre, but it's just much harder outside because, you know, there's wind and the elements of nature, but that also adds to the magic. I actually just had to walk onto the stage and, you know, imagine I was walking through a forest, which was way easier outside. And here's a tricky moment, which is a double pirouette. But this ballet is from the 1800s, so it's so old and so classical, and it really goes by the book of classical ballet. And it's very slow and very difficult. You just have to grit with it. but it's most enjoyable. It's dreamlike, and you know, with the lighting shining on stage, it was absolutely magical. So that's the poet going off, and this is the main self, the muse of the poet, and he's going to dance with her. I do believe that he's in love with her, and she's just doing her own thing. She's a sylph. She's almost like a fairy. The little wings on the back, they do remind me of fairies, but they are actually sylphs. Back in the day, they would have done it on point too, and I think the ideal look for the Victorian woman was a small waist and small feet. A small waist and small feet was in fashion. And here in the pas de deux, she's like almost whispering something to the poet, and he's listening within the choreography. This pas de deux is actually very difficult, but it's very enjoyable. And this piano music was actually recorded by a very talented pianist. I think his name was Gerard. This is towards the end of the pas de deux, so we've done most of it. I wish that I could see what it was first like when they performed this ballet in 1907 and 1909. I can really imagine them doing it because the movements are kind of a little bit slower. A lot of the newer choreographed ballets are very fast-paced, and you need a lot of good technique to perform it. I'm not saying that you don't need good technique to perform this ballet. I'm saying that it's easier to perform with bad technique, and it's more about artistry. As you can see, the upper body's used a lot, but there's a lot of ballet in, so it's just as hard technically. I absolutely love supernatural things and magic, so when I got to perform in a ballet like Les Sylphides, it just made me happy to know that I was performing in a ballet that was about, you know, supernatural magical creatures. And when you are performing a ballet like this, in that moment you really do believe magic is real. I mean, you have to. To think that the poet is the only man in this ballet is actually also quite strange, but it's often like that. In Giselle and Swan Lake, there's a time where the man is just swarmed by the women, and I think that's why ballet has been seen more as a women's sport. And this moment is my favorite in the ballet. It's so beautiful, this music, and I just think it's enchanting. I actually got to watch this ballet from the front and I was hypnotized. I just think it's beautiful, and you know, what is the world without arts and beauty? It's things like this, and this is from decades ago, so people needed this kind of entertainment all the way back in the 1800s. I can't believe we're still performing this ballet now. I performed this ballet this year, and it was first made decades ago. Many ballet companies performed it this year, and it's crazy to think that, I mean, we're keeping history alive. It's a little bit scary, but you know. This ballet was lots of fun. The poet and his sylphs, he just loves his magical ladies to write his poems. He's insane, but I love that. But that was it for today's video, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I could teach you something about the Romantic era of ballet. It was completely different from the classical era of ballet, and I hope you could see the magic, and you could see that we don't always perform in theatres, we sometimes perform outside. But I do hope you will like and subscribe to this channel. Please do, and please share this video with anyone who loves ballet. Thank you so much, guys, and until next time.